Paint the picture of alignment by asking the right questions. Deeply learn more about this rock star, this candidate. Once you paint the picture in the right way, the candidate is instantly sold. Your brand is not going to be perceived in the appropriate manner when you have volume going out the door. If there's volume going out the door, they think anyone can work at your company. Like, you're not an exception. You're not an exceptional company anymore. You've watered yourself down to, okay, you're just like a company that exists. You've built a great culture, but now you've watered it down by mass marketing to the wrong people. It's like horrible. And then rebuilding the reputation after takes years. Takes years of fixing that's out there in the marketplace.
I believe some people even call recruiters matchmakers.
Yes, can be referred to as that. Definitely because of the alignment piece. You're aligning a lot of different factors, making sure there's a good fit. Is this going to work long term? And so when I mentioned that quick metaphor to you about recruiting is like dating, it's like, imagine you're going on your first date and this person is just ready to get married and asks you that question. How would you feel? You'd feel, okay, even if this person is attractive, they have all the values you want, but human nature is like, oh my God, that's just too much too soon. And that sometimes does happen within recruitment. There could be a recruiter that approaches a rock star and they could get excited and they could just say the wrong things. And this rock star gets turned off very, very easily because they are, I would define a rock star as being a very thoughtful person. They're not just going to jump to an opportunity without themselves also vetting it out and learning how this aligns with their goals and their vision and where they can be for the next few years. They don't just jump ship, typically. A rock star is not looking for that. And they are being approached a lot. So think of it again in dating. A very attractive woman or man, they look great physically. They're dressed very nicely. They present themselves very well. They're funny, energetic. And it's like they have everything that someone wants. But then if they act in a manner where they're aggressive on the first interaction or as they're interacting with others, it's automatically a turnoff for another person. So too much too soon is not great. Even if you have the foundation, your company's great, your culture is great. Everyone there is a high performer. But there's aggressiveness in the process. It's not going to work in someone's favor. And then, rock stars also, they have options. They don't trust others very easily, typically. So if you're super aggressive, trust is out the door automatically. But if you're taking a softer approach, you're being thoughtful with the conversation, you're allowing time for momentum to build, that will be more successful than that aggressive approach that's a complete turnoff and repels this top talent. Like, the more you chase, the faster they run, type of thing. That's exactly what could happen. And again, the softer approach I've seen work very, very well. Like, think of it when someone approaches you also with a huge ego. You're automatically like, I can't connect with this person. It's very rare that you can connect so easily. Maybe you get to know them better. You're like, okay, they have a big ego. I could get past it.
Yeah.
But that could take some time after because they're coming in aggressive in their communication, aggressive with their approach. It's hard to connect, hard to build rapport. And that's not something that will help the process. And what I did note is, so like, what do rock stars respond to? A huge one that we previously talked about as well is rapport. So when you're getting to know them on a deeper level and making it more about them, not about you and your great company at first, of course, that will build more of the opportunity to kind of reel them in. So getting to know them on a deeper level is what I've seen. And this is many years. I didn't get this right at first. And I have a quick story for you too. But like, acknowledging their successes, giving them some praise, even though you want them to praise you. It's a two-way street within sales. You know, you build that rapport. They're not just like the average person who maybe the average person could just get sold on who you are, but they also want to be sold on how rock stars want to be sold on how do they fit with who you are. You know, the deeper the question, the better. It might not happen right away that you're asking these deep questions, but you have to pivot the conversation to try to assess what's the best deep question to ask. Like what drives them, what energizes them, what's most important. These are basic, but can provide a lot of details to help you be successful in selling this rock star. Where do they see themselves in the next 1, 3, 5, 10, 20 years? Because when you gather that information in sales, when you know what's important to the other party, especially this rock star that you're trying to hopefully close, that's going to work in your favor to understand if there's alignment. And then the sell becomes natural flowing, easy, kind of like a jigsaw puzzle. Okay, boom, we do match, or boom, we don't match. Like it doesn't go together. And that's okay. So the aggressiveness, a good portion of recruiters out there, because they are reliant on this fee that they're going to earn when things do work out, they are thinking of it from, I just need this money. If we want to put it in blunt terms, this is X amount of dollars if this goes through. They're not thinking, okay, I need to treat this person differently. They're just thinking, they're going with the mindset of I just need to make the money. And then it makes them be more aggressive when they're coming in with that mindset.
Right.
This took me a while to kind of fully understand, though, the story I'm going to tell you. I always saw other recruiters be aggressive. And they were even aggressive to me as a job seeker. So when I transitioned into recruitment, one of my first client, not the first client I mentioned in the book, but my second client or third client, they labeled me as different. And I'm like, am I doing something wrong? I always felt like, should I be more aggressive as I was transitioning into a new career? And it made me feel like, oh my God, I'm letting my client down. Like I'm not as aggressive. After time went on, I knew that this approach of not being aggressive was actually the right approach because I was starting to see more results consistently of how I was treating these candidates, these rock stars, and not using aggressive tactics in the process. And again, I always remember kind of like how I felt as a job seeker. I never responded to those that were aggressive to me. So maybe my mindset going in, I'm like, I can't be like that to someone because I know how it feels. I was there. I knew exactly how it felt. It made me feel like I want nothing to do with this person. And that's not how I wanted to build my brand and my company. I used to block certain recruiters who disrespected my value, didn't even understand what it took to achieve a designation like the CPA. They would just push roles on me that I was not interested in. They would even ask like, why are you not interested in this? This is a great company. I'm like, okay, but doesn't align with how I'm looking to grow. They just wouldn't understand and kept pushing until I had to cut them off or block their number. And I always remembered that because it left that sour taste in my mouth. And I always enjoyed the recruiters who were not pushy, asked great questions, wanted to really build a relationship. And that's the approach I wanted to take. I saw two different approaches. It was like almost someone who's bipolar. They have this approach and then they have this approach. You don't know. I saw the bipolarness of the recruitment industry. And I chose the approach that I felt resonated more with me, which resonated more with the candidates that I come across. Other items I can just quickly tell you about that. So, you know, emphasizing the alignment of goals and values, being fully transparent in the process, knowing that not everything will work out and that's okay. If there's a rock star looking for something specific, it doesn't align with this great organization, that's okay. Not pushing it further, trying to see alignment, but if there isn't, just like moving on versus keep pushing the aggressive approach. Keep trying to sell them until they're like, get me off the phone, or just they hang up. You know what I mean? Something like that is not great.
I know that that's also fundamental rule of sales that the best salespeople don't try to close every deal. The best salespeople know that by nature, most deals are not going to close.
There's a lot of misalignment between the role and the candidate, but they're still pushing. The candidate says, no, 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 keep pushing, like keep selling it. Like, oh no, you don't understand. This is amazing and all this stuff. It's kind of like that annoying person that won't leave you alone, if you want to describe it like that. And that gets you so frustrated and angry that you're like, get the hell away from me. I'm blocking you. Like that's the reaction that could sometimes happen. I know it sounds extreme, but it does happen. And that's not someone you want representing your brand. And I definitely have seen that with great brands. They don't even know that this is happening in the background. They have no idea that they're treating these candidates like and you know, a certain percentage of the population falls into the category of rock stars or high performers. So this limited amount of people out there is getting treated like by a recruiter that you're working with. I've seen it multiple times that this does happen. But what it looks like is they're just fed up. The result is they're fed up. They don't want to ever talk to this recruiter again. And it's just keeps pushing with messages or calls or selling, just keep, those items. I don't know if I'm being very specific with you, but just they keep poking them in different ways and not leaving them alone, thinking that the more they poke, the more likely they're going to say, okay, yes. Doesn't happen.
So I have heard that another kind of sales principle is seek the no. So in sales, obviously you want a yes, because yes means closing. But a no is also desirable because where salespeople and maybe recruiters, where they kind of waste most of their time is chasing something that's just not a good fit and it's not gonna happen. I don't mean chase it in an aggressive way, but it's those maybes that are tricky because those people will, they can waste a lot of your time. So I know that the best salespeople, they tend to kind of move things. It's very binary. It's you look for folks who are either a yes, because then you can close, or a firm no, because then you're just not aligned, and it's never going to happen. I don't know if you share this philosophy, but what's your take on that? Do you kind of in your work seek the no? You try to rock star either in the yes box or the no box, or is it more like?
That's a good one. That's a really great concept, and I love it. But rock stars, some of them could fall in that gray area where sometimes giving them a little bit more time, that softer approach will work in your favor. So the expectation might not be yes or no right away. And I've seen this a lot, and it has worked in our favor throughout selective insight, growing selective insight, and building relationships in general in the business. They need a little bit of time because some of these rock stars are more analytical, for example. They're using their analytical side of their brain and thinking through it a little bit more. When you give them a little bit of time and you're not aggressive, and then let's say you follow up in a few business days, they have had that space to make the best decision, to move forward or to not. And it could go either way, but definitely not being attached to the outcome of yes and still understanding could be a no, but not saying that, hey, I need a yes or no now. And this will go in the offer stage too. Sometimes they need a little bit more time, and the aggressive approach in that stage does not work well either. But I've seen the gray area, and don't give up on the gray area, I would say. Just do not be aggressive and pushy. Use the softer approach, and that could work in your favor with a rock star candidate that has had the time. Now, what you do before you give them time, though, you align. What's important to them, what the company offers, they now know. Now they're thinking of alignment. So if they don't see the direct alignment, or they think through and they're like, this is too misaligned, okay, that's fine. But you have to influence them a little bit by connecting the dots too, in the soft approach, not the aggressive approach. I would love that gray area to be in there because I don't think a lot of people talk about it. especially in recruitment, that there is a
Right.
gray area, and that's okay. Like some companies, just like you said, they want a yes or no. But that doesn't work with rock stars. And I always like, I get frustrated with sometimes with some of my clients. I'm like, it's normal for them to take a little bit of time. It's normal for them to not make this decision so quickly. What's not the norm is someone jumping on your company and saying this is the best fit ever in the first hour of meeting you. That's not
Right.
normal. That's like red flag, like something's off here.
Okay. I mean, is it a red flag or is it just
They could
happened,
be
right?
excited, but if they're ready to just make that move after having one meeting,
Okay.
that's not a rock
Yeah.
star. I
It
don't
looks,
think it is. No.
got it. Yeah, looks a little desperate on their part.
And guess what? In sales, those that are most excited to say yes are typically the ones that say no at the end. The alignment of the goals and values and how it's the number one sales tactic to leverage.
Right.
Like you said, first, it's always better off to know if there is misalignment early on in the process, because now you know it's a no, you move on. You don't keep pushing an outcome when you
Yeah.
know there's misalignment. I wanted to mention this. As my mentor always says, paint the picture. Paint the picture of alignment by asking the right questions. Deeply learn more about this rock star, this candidate. And then grab that paintbrush and emphasize the areas that are in alignment with the candidate's goals, beliefs, and aspirations. Once you paint the picture in the right way, the candidate is instantly sold without any pressure tactics, without any aggressive tactics at all. And just a quick story of how alignment really worked in someone's favor. And this was a candidate of ours,
Okay.
a really great high performing candidate. He's an accounting manager. What does he value? What's really important to him outside of just technical? Focus in a lot. Like, who is this person? Plus, you build rapport. With rapport, you're able to align better and they're able to trust you more. So, what he valued was work-life balance. What he also valued was building relationships with like-minded people. When he received multiple offers from one of our hiring companies, our client, and outside of us, which I did not have visibility into, he almost made the wrong decision as I was speaking to him about both offers. And he only was speaking to me because I already had built rapport and trust that he was like, hey, let me just get her perspective. What I did was I remembered what was most important to him, the work-life balance, building relationships with like-minded people. I started painting the picture for him. I had a lot of knowledge of this other role he had an offer for. It was in the mergers. It was a financial due diligence role that's pretty technical in M&A. And I knew he was going to be working like a dog, which is fine for some people. But I painted the picture that aligns with his values and goals of having a better work-life balance, not working the weekends, not working the craziest hours. Yes, you have to put in efforts sometimes, but you had your weekends for your other activities that are important to you. So when I aligned that, it all came together. To him, he was able to make a better decision. But he was not, sometimes you have to make that push at the end, which is not aggressive. It's a soft approach of re-emphasizing the alignment and helping them make a better decision. This alignment that you've identified can be leveraged throughout each additional step of the process to yield the best outcome.
Tell me about a time you experienced when you were recruiting someone where there just wasn't alignment. Like maybe initially it looked promising, but the company and the rockstar just weren't aligned.
Sometimes it is regarding the work-life balance that I do see. So initially, like a lot of things aligned, and then they dig in more and they're like, we require a little bit more effort here. And I don't think that that's going to align because they said they really value a hybrid environment and they're fully on site, for example. They're working an average of 50 to 55 hours. This person wants to work 40 hours, even though they're, a great high performing candidate, they just don't want to extend additional efforts. There could be videos out about leadership and how it's like to work with them and what they believe in. And sometimes a rock star wants to feel aligned with the values and vision of leadership. And they see something online, for example. They might love the company, but they're like, I can never work for this type of leader. I wouldn't want to be associated with that.
Quality versus quantity is your competitive advantage. Obviously, we're emphasizing quality. And that's your approach, the bedrock of your own practice. So tell me what most recruiters do. They basically they do the spam approach where they're trying to net a huge number. Tell me what the quality, sorry, tell me what the quantity approach looks like and why it's bad.
Yes. So this is a huge topic in recruitment, quality versus quantity. Initially, again, going back to human psychology, you think the more, the better. The more you have in the pipeline for candidates, the more likely you're going to have more success, which is the complete polar opposite. That's my strong belief, and that's what I've seen for the past 15 plus years being internal, external recruitment and hiring. But what they do, what most recruiters do wrong is they'll cast a very, very, very wide net. They might even use tools to send thousands of emails and messages. Like it's that extreme. Just pumping out as much as they can to produce possibly a small result. And what they do on the quantity side is they're working with a client and this hiring company is expecting a certain amount of resumes to get submitted by this recruiter. So they're both focused on quantity. How many resumes can we see versus how many resumes can we see that convert? We want them to convert. We don't just want 100 resumes coming in, conversions 1%. What would that do? What does it do? Waste time, energy. Everyone's frustrated with this large volume. They can't even review everything. Instead, taking the approach of quality, smaller pile of resumes, smaller stack, higher conversion. And throughout my years of recruitment now, I've always had this like, how do you say it? Push and pull with the clients. Okay. Like they want to see more. They want to see more. I'm like, okay, if I present you 3 resumes, everyone is amazing. You talk to them, you fall in love with everyone. Do you care about receiving 100 resumes? What would you rather have? When they fully understand it, and maybe my approach is very different than the industry norm, I would say. The industry norm is push resumes. Right. I'm coming in, okay, I want a good outcome. Like you said, like in sales, like I'm not pushing a bad outcome. I'm pushing a good outcome. Smaller stack, higher conversion for them to hire this professional. The priority really should be fit versus volume, taking more of a strategic approach. And how do you do this? You know, if this great strategic recruiter that you're working with has a network that they've built for a few years, they get referrals into the door. Their brand drives the right candidate. That's what you want to do. You want to focus on being more strategic versus the volume play that most recruiters are doing. Because guess what? It's easy to push a button. It's easy to send mass email, mass messages. It's easy to do that in the industry. So as even AI becomes more widely used, the recruiter that is the low performing recruiter, they're going to rely on that to help push the volume with the perception that more volume, I'm a better recruiter if I have more resumes and more candidates. And that's kind of like what's wrong in the industry, honestly. I never agreed with it. And it also just quickly, it waters down the brand of the company. It's not just that it's a waste of time and frustration. Your brand is not going to be perceived in the appropriate manner when you have volume going out the door. If there's volume going out the door, they think anyone can work at your company. Like you're not an exception. You're not an exceptional company anymore. You've watered yourself down to, okay, you're just like a company that exists. You've built a great culture, but now you've watered it down by mass marketing to the wrong people. It's like horrible. And then rebuilding the reputation after takes years. Takes years of fixing all of that, the that's out there in the marketplace. And I've also seen that. So it hurts the company's reputation. And instead, of the volume play, need to be selective. And again, that's why I named my company Selective Insight. I kept seeing this. I'm like, what really drives my brand? As you're learning more about me, I'm not the volume play. I'm more, hey, more strategic, want that alignment versus volume. But if you've been treated a certain way for so many years and you think that's just the norm, like I just have to deal with it. And then
Right.
someone like myself comes in, shows you a different approach, lessens the frustration, the time, the energy, making your life easier, putting your brand on a pedestal, then you have an easier decision to make. But if you've always thought this is the norm and you've seen nothing else, then unfortunately you just accept it. You know what I mean? I don't know how to explain that, but it's almost like we just accept the way things are, and it can't get better, can it? I have a great testimonial that drives this point. Well, Chris, who I met. So I showed him a different style of recruitment. He fell in love with it. We're still friends because I showed him a different way. And he was the one that told me, hey, this is like less, I don't have to deal with as many interviews. Like, I don't have to review as much. My frustration is low. I don't have the time and energy. I just want to be able to have, if I have 3 resumes and they're all great, that's what I want. Versus, okay, some think the grass is greener on the other side. Let's get more volume. And then it's just like shit on top of shit. And it's like, we're wasting more time.
And when has this been part of your practice from day one, or how did you kind of come to this realization that what everyone else does is wrong and you stumbled upon a way that's better? What was the origin of this approach? Was it just a matter of you saw the damage that wanted the approach? Or was there like a specific light bulb moment where you were like, hold on, we don't have to do it this way?
So when you're a business owner, just like yourself, you're like, hey, I want a successful outcome. When I kept going through unsuccessful outcomes, I wasn't pushing volume necessarily. But when I kept seeing that, I said, let's look at our conversion, what is happening, and why these candidates were not successful. Let's keep this in mind now. Okay, if this candidate says X, I'm not presenting them. If this candidate doesn't have this, I am not presenting them. As I gained more feedback, as I gained more feedback and became closer to each client, I realized, let me assess a few more things before I even make the introduction. I became even more detailed. So and the volume became, not that I wasn't focused on quality, I was focused even more on quality. If my quality was at a 7, I'm getting close to now 9.5. Never can be 10. I think there's always room for improvement. I was getting close to that as I fully understood my client and drove more of those questions. There was some trial and error, especially if a company's very picky and you don't just learn a company's culture and their leaders right away, like intimately. You can have a good understanding. But then as they go through the whole process, you realize, okay, if this candidate is like this, I'm not even presenting them because I know the outcome is not going to be successful because they're not going to be aligned with the leader, or they're not going to be aligned. They have a missing technical side and it's a little gray area. I don't think it's going to work. I began making better judgment calls and not introducing as many candidates. Not that I was, again, pushing volume, but just the volume became even smaller. I guess perfected the process and wanted to, again, drive the best outcome. I didn't, and honestly, I didn't want to waste my time. I want to spend more time with the right ones. And as a business owner, I'm not getting paid until there's a successful outcome. But in recruitment, it's very, I'm at 0. I'm not just getting money up front. I'm getting money most of the time. Now I've changed my business model, but early on, contingency is dependent on a successful outcome. I'm at $0 if I don't have that successful outcome. That drove me to think of the volume play more and how the quality truly, truly matters. So in chapter 2, we talked about how I landed my first client. And you asked me, like, how did you figure it out? Like, volume was not the right approach and quality was. When I was working with the first client that I landed, they used a lot of recruiters and who pushed volume on them. But then when we came in, were presenting a handful of aligned candidates. We quickly stood out, and they actually tracked conversion from actual presenting submission of the resume to an offer. They track conversion from like presenting the resume to interview. And I didn't really track in the beginning. I was just like, okay, I got to build this business. I'm not tracking anything. I'm not looking at analytics at this point. I'm just saying, let's be successful. And then, okay, we can look at things later. And when they came to us one day and they're like, they presented us with an update to our agreement. We were receiving 25% as a placement fee.
Okay.
And they increased it to 30%. And I was like, what? I did not ask, let's go back to aggressiveness. I didn't even ask for an update. I was not pushy about increasing our fee. Even though we were producing results, I never thought to go to them and say, hey, we produced this amount of results. Well, we need a raise in our fee. That didn't come across my mind. We had close to what they said at the time was, I believe, 70% conversion from a resume to an offer. And given they're highly analytical, that stood out right away. It's kind of like hey, it gets flagged. If something's outside of the norm, when you're looking at analytics, they're looking at percentages. Oh, okay. Like this is the norm percentage. Okay, whoa. Rita and her company are at this number. That's different. So the result was with that first client, I forget the exact timing, but within a year and a half to 2 years, we became their #1 strategic recruitment partner. They had, I don't know, over 100 recruiters they were working with because they have a national presence in a lot of different major US cities. The alignment, I figured, hey, the alignment was working. The quality was working. The volume play does not work. That's when I realized, that was a turning point where I said, okay, this is the approach. With the quality, the success rate went up, the frustration went down, the time spent went down, retention went up. All of the professionals, the rock stars that I placed, were staying in their companies as well for a long time, progressing to higher roles. And I would track that too. That made me happy because at the end of the day, I want my client to be happy. I want the rock star to also be happy. I don't want someone to just join a company and leave and not be happy with their decision. It's a great success story early on where I was labeled as different, but different meant I produced a better result. Guess what? Then I'll be different. That's okay. I wanted to share something with you, and that's the alignment of candidates with the organization, more important than just the volume play. I know this is driving, again, alignment, but alignment is tied to retention, as discussed before. If the vision and the beliefs of the CEO is not aligned with other team members, then those team members just won't stick around. Recently, and this is very, very recent, I'm happy that I came across this leader who's, I think, amazing. I recently interviewed Praveen, who sold Morphic Therapeutics to Eli Lilly for $3.2 billion in 9 years. He recently sold it last year, around mid last year. Now, what he was telling me about alignment is he was intentional with building out a culture of excellence, and he made it known. He would even write blogs on culture and really wanted to cast that vision for his company, and everyone that came in knew what type of leader he was. He knew it was going to work in his favor. I even asked him, hey, do you kind of like believe in the law of attraction? He was like, absolutely. He just quickly mentioned that, it worked in his favor because those that came in and kind of like were attracted to that, they stuck around. But those that came in and realized they're not in alignment, they left. They respected the culture. They respected him and others, but they realized, hey, this is not for me. So it kind of repelled them from staying. And sometimes that could happen. Not everything's perfect in the process, but it worked in everyone's favor is basically the point he drove home. It's not about forcing the fit. It's about that alignment. The pitfalls of hiring multiple recruiters, casting a wide net that you just mentioned, just driving the point earlier on in our discussion today, the limited number of rock stars.
Right.
Like imagine and this happens when one hiring company engages multiple recruiters, because again, they're looking at the volume play. Imagine a great rock star candidate getting 5 messages about the same exact opportunity from 5 different recruiters, which happens in the market. Are they going to perceive this company as high value? Your employment brand is down, the perception is down, the desperation is all the way up. and it's repelling the rock star from even wanting to be engaged with your company. Would you rather have low volume, high conversion, or high volume, low conversion?